live in LA, so there's this tiny possibility.
It's crazy how you finish each other's
Sandwiches.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another wonderful office hours with August. Today we have a poll going. It is. Have you guys seen Elsa and Anna? What is that called? That is that movie called, and why am I blanking? Frozen. Frozen. On Frozen, there is a line where Anna, one of the princesses, asks Hans, "It's crazy how we finish each other's," and then he answers with sandwiches. She answers with sandwiches. Okay, I am rambling now, but basically, there's a poll going on. Choose which one, because I'm in a sandwich mood. How are you doing, August?
I'm
I'm
doing
doing
great. My favorite template
of the year just dropped,
so
so
I'm
I'm
super
super
excited.
excited.
Yes. There's a reason why I mentioned sandwiches, and it has to do with one of the Valentine's effects that you guys have submitted to be reviewed. So more on that later. But August, I know you've been working on this template for a long time. Can you let me know? Can you give us a backstory on how you got making this effect, or how long it took, or the struggles you had to go through while you were making this effect?
We'll
We'll
start with the backstory.
Okay.
In
In
October of
October of
1989, there
1989,
was
there
this
was a
desert
desert
storm
storm
in
in
Bakersfield,
Bakersfield,
California.
California, where I was born. Not that far. Okay. When I was first learning shaders, of course, I went to all the different websites to learn different shader things, and this was one of the first shader effects that I ever made for like a TikTok effect, just based on the inspiration that I got from learning everything. So I've remade this same shader in like 5 different engines, and this is the first time that it's like released in a global way to where other people can interact with it and collaborate. So that's kind of where it came from.
Remember on your personal account, you also released a matrix that kind of uses this concept.
Yeah, I made an ASCII shader. That was the first one. And so this one, instead of showing like symbols like $, pound sign, like my old one, this one just shows other symbols, whatever you want to do with it. So this one, let's take a look at the ramp example here. So this is the closest to the original shader. If you use this vertical slider, that's very easy to use, and everybody should check it out. You can kind of zoom in on the symbols and make them larger and see that actually each one of these symbols is what's drawing the picture. There's no video feed here that's kind of like blending with these shapes. It's literally like the background is bright, so it's showing bright hearts that represent that area. So it's really cool because it's like a technical, nice little cool thing. So you can kind of tweak in a very interesting way how the screen is represented. So if you were to make this exact thing, you would take a look at some of these ramp textures down here. The heart ramp is the one we're using. And I'll just full screen. So hopefully we get a little more screen space. But this texture here shows a very bright heart on the left and a very dark and small heart on the right. Now, the one on the right is my heart. No, I'm just kidding. No, the dark small heart is the size and the color both help make it a little bit of a darker color. And so this whole square is drawn in any of the parts that's recognized as like a dark part of the screen. So like the shirt here is a bunch of these small dark hearts, and that's why it looks like small dots, and these hearts look larger. So I think that explains like the basic concept of what we're seeing here. If you look at the shader, I've tried to split it up into the 3 sections that are the most important. So anybody who is interested in shaders could learn more. But the basics are we're calculating where in each little square we're drawing, and then we're getting the brightness of the square with this subgraph, get luminance. And then once we have the brightness of the square and the coordinates on the screen when we're in the shader that say which part of that square we're in, we can draw the whole symbol. And so that's what this last subgraph does. It figures out which heart you want to draw, where you want to draw it, and the bounds that you're drawing it into. And then we have some extra little things, like this is the gradient example. So we take in 4 different colors, and I created this little nice useful subgraph remap so that we can lerp between all the colors of the gradient to create the full ramp of color. So if you do shaders and you wanted to copy the exact remap subgraph or node from visual scripting to material graph, steal this one from this project. It's really nice. And then, yeah, let's make one real quick. Let's make a cool one. I want to show you how easy it is. So we've got our gradient mosaic. This is like the middle tier one. There's the simple one that has less settings, and it's very simple. There's this gradient one, which is my favorite. And then there's the sprite one where you actually have to create your own sprite ramp like this. So for the gradient one, you don't have to create anything. You just need one square image. So let's do that. So this one has the single heart. Let's, you know what, just to change it up, let's try the single rose instead. I actually like the heart the most, but for this example, if we zoom in, you can see their little roses for Valentine's Day. So let's start with a dark color as our first out of 4 colors. So let's say I kind of like this purple. That's why I chose it in the first place. But let's go a little more blue purple, and it'll be very dark. This orange, we can do like a blue that's a little lighter, but still should be dark. And then the third tint, let's go like orange. We want to make sure it's brighter, but not all the way white yet. And then the last one, I know this one was white and the other one, so we'll just do a very pastel, bright green. And then as you can see, maybe you can tweak these to fit in your ramp a little better. Like for instance, I'm noticing it's a little too kind of dark. So I'm lightening some of these colors up a little bit. Keep in mind, you still always have your background color. So depending how large your symbol is, the background color might be good enough to be your darkest color. Since the rose is transparent, you can see quite a lot behind it. I could probably lighten up my purple a little bit. And there'll still be some dark. And then if I was to make this a dynamic version, watch this. This is the cool part. The minimum brightness, if I stop clamping this to 1 like it is, and I bring it down, the symbols can change size. So then it reveals more of the background.
That's really cool. I love how you can do it so simply, but it works so well, so smooth.
Yeah, and it's fun because like most things, you can do them either, sometimes they take a long time, sometimes they're simple, but you don't see the result until you're finished. This one, it's so fun because you see the result every step of the way, every little change you make, you can see how the finished product will look. That's what's so fun to me.
Oh, also, August, it seems like the slider is really smooth. Is there any way that people can just take apart and use the slider part?
Yeah, let's take a look at that. Since this was not in the original request, I actually added this because I was like, you guys, a slider is so useful. We should just
Slider is always so much better than like inputting values or tapping on the screen. I just feel like it's intuitive and it's so fun that your audience like actually gets to interact with it and like select it.
Yeah, and when I was messing with it, when I was testing this project, I was like, this is vital to like picking the size that you want and testing it out. So there's the horizontal slider and the vertical slider. The main reason for this is because the simplest way to make the two different ones was just to kind of replace the X and Y coordinates in a lot of this subgraph. So basically, you don't have to rotate anything. As long as you use the horizontal slider and you don't rotate it, it'll work perfectly. For instance, it's using point in rect, and it's using vertex to rect. So it's basically calculating the bounds of the object by getting it from these objects.
Can someone potentially use that subgraph to make the images fit to a screen size? I know that has been a constant question in the office hours. Like, hey, I want to do a frame, but because of the different screen dimensions on different devices, sometimes it fits, sometimes it doesn't. Do you think this could be a solution?
I don't think that this slider subgraph is a solution, but we could figure one out during this live.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, I'll come back to it.
Okay, cool. Perfect. The other things in here are just a thing to hide an object on record. And this is a little it's a little over the top because you can hide on record, hide always, and select the object. And so, UI a lot of the time is the only kind of thing that I do this with, but I wanted to leave it open. So scene object just could be anything if you want to hide it on screen. Or if you want to have it available while you're working, but you want to click hide always as soon as you release, so it hides it. Like this slider, maybe you would want to tweak it so that it looks exactly like that. And you want to be able to come back and switch it later, but you don't want that slider in your final effect. Then you'll just click hide always, and then it's just never there. Yeah, and if you want to switch between horizontal and vertical, you can just disable and hide. And now we have a horizontal slider that works. It's as easy as that. I would say probably replace the heart with a rectangle, unless you're making another Valentine's Day effect, But you can use it in all of your projects.
Yeah, if let's say instead of the hearts popping, someone wanted to put a hat, how would someone go about doing that?
Instead of the hearts, somebody wanted to put a hat?
Yeah, maybe from the asset library.
Oh, you mean the hearts on the eyes? Yeah, so there are here I just changed the name of these nodes. So it says pre-processing effects and 2D pre-processing effects. That just means if we're calling the other ones post effects, these ones I just called pre-effects because anything that happens here happens before the shader. So these like heart eyes that are glowing. If we go to the asset library, we can sift through millions of hats. Don't quote me on millions. I'm not sure about that. Let's see. I wonder if they have a fedora with Safari flaps. Close enough. So we'll go with the Trilby hat. It doesn't have flaps, but we do have cloth simulation, so maybe I'll add that later. And then I think it's just added to our library here, and we can put it up here. Oh. Okay. So dragging this prefab into the scene creates it, and then we can move it over to the head tracker. Oh, right on the head perfectly. He looks dangerous now in the way that I'm going to fall in love with him in the 1950s.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay.
He does look pretty dangerous, in my opinion. Kind of looks like a cowboy who has turned bad. Maybe like a sci-fi cowboy? I don't know. I'm thinking of like when you go to a national park and there's park rangers, but one of them has turned bad and cybernetic.
That happens to me every week.
Yeah, I know. Last week when I went to Grand Canyon, that happened to me as well.
I'm glad you got home safe.
Yes. Welcome everyone who's joining. Thank you, August, for that wonderful breakdown of the template. I hope that you guys are able to create some wonderful Valentine effects and share it to us, because next week during this time, this August office hour time, we're going to be showing off your wonderful creations. So cue the animation. Definitely super cute, and this is one effect by Kellex Savage that I wanted to shout out. He's created this new effect, and it's a word sync lovers edition. So you have to guess what comes at the end of the sentences, hence the poll today. This morning, at the beginning of the stream, I asked you guys what's going to be at the end of the sentence. It's crazy how we finish each other's sandwiches or sentences. So Kel has created this one, and it's like a word in the front, and you have to guess like teddy bear, but you could also do Teddy Roosevelt. I don't know. So it's a really fun game. Go check it out. Thank you, Kel, for submitting this to us. But if you want your effect to be featured on the live next week, don't forget to submit it. So super excited. You guys have a date with August next week.
So all you have to do is you have to like guess the end of the word.
Okay. Going back to our agenda, while we were doing a breakdown, we got so many wonderful questions from the audience. Let's go to them. Haley Kapaz is saying, this looks so fun. Kel's effects are awesome. I do agree. Usually Kel's in the live with us. I hope that he's able to check on this one as well. Okay, first question is from Edgar. Hi, has anybody been experiencing issues with the preview in TikTok QR code with the new update? I received a message saying something went wrong, try again. Happens to all projects and templates. Oh no. For this one, I would say double check whether you have the latest program, and if you do and is still having the problem, submit a ticket to our support. They will be able to assist you. But another common theme is that it could be an issue with your internet connection. I am also sometimes guilty of this. I forgot that I turned like a VPN on, and I'm like, oh, Effect House, why isn't this working? And then after like talking to so many people, bothering all of the interactive engineers like August, they're like, do you have a VPN on? And I'm like, no. And then I go and check it, and I do have it on. And then I turn it off, and it immediately fixes all my problems. So just double check your internet connection. But if not, the support team is here to help you. So send an email to the support team. Next question is from Mike Blackhat. Mike is interested in learning something about the texture depth and how it works. Ooh, I know we are supposed to have a template about this as well. The radiating hearts template.
Oh.
But yeah, that one. But basically, to give a little bit of a preface, Effect House introduced a new feature where it AI generates like a texture map, and you can add it if you go to the asset library. So Melody has created this wonderful template where it detects and kind of projects the heart to the person. I think this is the cutest effect ever. And if you see like the edge of August right now, there's like kind of ripples of hearts going in, and you can see that it's kind of like meshing and projecting on the person's body instead of just being like a 2D image. So anything to add for August?
Yeah. So from the technical side, there's a lot that's really good to know when you're using this. For instance, the depth map. I wonder if we can see it. So this is kind of a representation of it. I wonder if we can see it on screen. This will be very useful to see for, I think, most people.
I think if you just add like a 2D image and set it as you'll be able to see it. And I love it because when you apply it, it looks like you are, in Star Wars where someone gets like locked into the cement, kind of. Is it Han Solo? But I don't know. It looks like that kind of.
This is kind of a Han Solo pose here. Like, no, stop, don't freeze me. So yeah, when you can see it, I think it becomes a lot more obvious what exactly it's doing. So this is, it's basically the image is processed by an algorithm to decide what are the closest pixels on the screen and what are the farthest. So that's why it's called depth texture. It's like these black pixels mean that this pixel on the screen represents some object in the real world that is the closest to the camera. So the way that it works, I think this is important too, but like the farthest back pixel on the screen and the farthest front are going to be the white and the black. So that means that it's normalized. So if the whole screen is taken up by me, then notice that my arms that are closer than my face previously
I'm
was.
so glad that we have this second camera here to show your thing because I can't see from your preview.
Reindeer. No, but yeah, see how it kind of shifts? It totally changed colors once I filled the whole screen. And so you can know if most of the time there's going to be a person up close and probably a background far away. But yeah, just know that if the person takes up the whole screen, the values might change a lot. But knowing that, you can basically design all of your effects where there's going to be the person is going to represent the closest object, something else is going to be in the background, and there might be some things staggering in the background, and there might be a little bit of a gradient on the person, like my neck and chest are a little further away than my actual face. Yeah, I would like check this out routinely. Oh no, it looks like there's smoke on my head from the
The fans.
The way the fan is interacting with my hair, that's so funny. Wait, no, I'm really on fire.
Oh no, you're on fire.
But no, yeah, this is great because then you can feed this texture into shaders like this one that Celine just introduced. And you can see like the heart will kind of move across me so that it's like over my chest, but in the background it like folds back further a little bit. Yeah, it's really fun to play with. I would highly
Yeah.
suggest if you're into shaders, this is like a fun one to play with.
Okay, thank you for answering. There's a follow-up question. MA3 designer is asking question number sorry. Mike Blackhat is asking, so it works only with people or does it also recognize space?
Yeah, so it's not looking for any specific subject. It's just the depth on the screen. So it should work with anything, not just people. Yeah.
Yeah, so test it out definitely and go check out this heart radiating template as well. It would be very useful for when you are creating your Valentine effect to submit to the next live stream. Okay. Going back, fun with. There's another question from the chat. Hey, August, can you tell us where we can learn shaders?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people in the industry will point you to bookofshaders.com. That's like the intro to shaders that most people like blaze through because it's so easy to walk through. I think also if you're a game developer or if you're an artist, you might have different things that like motivate you. So one thing that I know a lot of people have done is like choose a game engine that has access to shaders like Unity or Unreal and kind of play with them there first just to get familiar with them. And there's a lot of tutorials for how to do shaders in those. And you can also look through all of our templates. They have a lot of visual scripting in our material graph, which is essentially the same as shaders. So I would pick through these. Some of them are more technical than others, and some are a little bit more open-ended, but most of them are, very heavy math.
Okay.
So be prepared for that.
Yeah, my best advice also and how I'm learning shaders is literally by breaking apart the templates. We have so many awesome templates. So I go and experiment with them, tweak the values, try to randomly connect stuff and be like, hey, what does this do? And I found that it helps me a lot. So that was super useful.
One thing I like to tell people that I've more recently figured out. So it doesn't quite work with this color because so remember this, when you have an output to a subgraph and you connect something like a color, it's basically always going to want a color. So sometimes I'll create like a new port out just to see like, hey, this isn't doing what I think it's doing. I feel like I have some mistake in my code. I want to see something about this. So then I bring that part of the code out to the exit, and I'll just put it directly into the shader output. And to blink this way, then take a look at this. This is what it would have drawn if my shader would have stopped at that point. So it doesn't always look like your final effect. Sometimes it looks like a gradient across the screen from corner to corner, but that gives you a lot of information about like what the pixels are doing at this point in your shader. Deform heart shape according to depth. So like something I would do here is maybe drag this over to, oh no, is this a different type? So I would drag this over to here. Oh, you can't put output to input. But yeah, sometimes I'll take the input and the output of a subgraph to see like what that subgraph did, what transformation that it did to that. But we'll just, so this depth factor, for instance, this will be a great one to check because it's not something you would think to check. We plug this into color and the depth factor is just at least 1 everywhere. So then you're like, okay, so this depth factor, I could look at some other part of my project, what that depth factor is, but I can clearly see that for every pixel, it's basically 1. And that might be helpful. Depth factor sounds like it's just something that you set outside the material, so that's maybe easier to look up outside of the material, but But yeah, sometimes there's a value going into a subgraph that you're like, I wonder what that actually is. I wish I could test it. There's no way to log the values out. So being able to see it on screen is sometimes the best way to get more information about what's happening. Yeah.
This is a really useful tip. Thank you for sharing. My black hat is also noticing that we have a new template on physics. All of the template designers are working so hard, pumping out so many awesome new templates. Yeah, another question from MA3 designers. I have two questions. Question number one, how can I pull a sphere backwards and release it as if it was an arc? Question two, how can we create a bowling ball by pushing it by hand? I think maybe the second question, your dessert dash. I always confuse it with desert. Dessert dash template might help.
Yeah, let's go with one at a time. Which should we answer that second bowling?
Yeah,
one
let's start with the
first?
bowling one. Question number two, how can we create a bowling ball by pushing it by touch?
I'm curious what they mean by pushing by touch, but this one has an on-screen joystick that might.
My understanding is that you touch the ball and then you kind of flick it, and then that controls how fast you're going or which direction you're going.
You flick it. Are these two questions related?
I don't think so. I think they're just general. They have a curiosity in creating a mini game in TikTok.
Cool. Well, this is a great template to start with, and just to get some ideas out. I think if you go through the subgraphs here, there's a lot of different stuff that is helpful to make like something like a bowling game where for one, there's a controls subgraph, and this is where our simplified joystick and our vehicle controls are. So this simplified joystick is basically how we're getting the input, where you're touching on screen. So if you wanted to have a game where you're rolling a ball based on something else, maybe you could have like this touch or hand recognition as the input that you would replace here. And then you have the vehicle controls subgraph, which basically will allow you to tell it to accelerate forward, set a max speed, how fast it'll accelerate, and then the camera positioning will be how it turns. And it'll basically always be trying to roll towards the direction that the camera's facing. So this is great if you want like a full package, which is honestly, I would encourage that, because to start from the ground up, there's just so much work that you would put into it before you would be able to start playing with it. This one you can play with. Once you figure out what you want, you can make it. Yeah. Do you think that answers the question, Celine?
I think so. Let's start here because I feel like that is a very big question and a whole new microjam project. But I think August has given a lot of like good ingredients where you can start with, and then maybe we can later connect it to finger touch or finger swipe to get the desired look. Going back to question number one, now let's think about how we can create a simple version where you can flick your finger or, like hold the sphere backwards. You know, Angry Birds, like when they're on like a V-shaped wood and then you kind of like pull it backwards and it will fly like an arch. I think that's what they're thinking of. Is there any way to emulate the arch?
Yeah. So let's just start with a fresh project. That's just such a different mechanic than anything in this project that I'll just start fresh. I'll see what I can do. There might be, oops, I didn't mean to save. There might be some unforeseen things that make it much more complicated, but I'll just take a minute here and string together a couple ideas. So we'll start with a 3D sphere. And the first thing you want to do on the 3D sphere, if you're going to make a physics-based effect, is go to 3D physics and add rigid body and sphere collider. Now I just always click fit mesh on the sphere collider. You can see it's almost perfectly 5. So that works. And then, yeah, if you don't want it to fall off the screen at the start, you can just click is static. So let's see. What we basically want to create some spring physics. So that might introduce the idea of some of maybe our spring joint could potentially be useful here. Let's do that. Let's try to make the part of the project, part of the tool do the work for us. And it might not be perfect for our exact example, but I'll give it a try. So 3D physics, rigid body on this cube. So this cube, let's see, I'm going to make it static. And essentially, I kind of want to scale it on the X to just say this is like, oops. Oh no, it only goes by 1. I just want to say like this is the top of the slingshot, and it's a slingshot mechanic. This top of the slingshot will not have a collider, a box collider, because we don't need anything to collide with it. It's just to show you on the screen, hey, this is where the sphere is launching out of. So then we've got our sphere with our spring, and let's say the connected body on our sphere spring is the cube. And then since they're both static, the cube is not, or the spring is not really going to do anything yet because both rigid bodies are static, not simulating physics. So let's do a touch. So we'll say finger touch. Maybe we can convert to screen space. So world to screen. So we're going to take our touch inputs, and actually we want screen to world probably. Yeah, I think we want screen to world for this. There's many ways to do everything, but I think it'll be easier if we just convert our touch directly to screen space. And then this Z depth, I think want to make sure that this is the distance between the camera and the sphere. So the sphere is at 0 and the camera is at 40. It usually defaults to 40. Yeah. So then I would put 40 here, and then I would select that camera. And now I think that's all set up. So then we would set the sphere position. So much build up here. If this doesn't work, it's going to be so obnoxious. Okay, so on stay, we'll set the position of the sphere, and we're going to set it to the world position. So it's always going to be 40 from the camera. I think that should be able to move it around. Okay, yeah, so now we can move the sphere around. I feel like that's a kind of a big step for when you first start out. Like that's a big thing to figure out as a beginner. So if you need to screenshot how to drag around a 3D object with the finger touch node, this is how to do it. And then basically when you let go, we just want to turn off that static. Or turn off is static. Yeah, so set is static on stop touch, and we want to set it to false. And this is on just the sphere. We don't want the cube to become non-static. We want it to always stay in its place. And then let's see. Then when you let go, we basically want it to detach the spring as soon as it's like put in its power, you know? So maybe on update, or no, Okay, so this is a hack that I love to do. And I don't think it's that hacky. It's good. It's a good hack. You should all do it. This is called the update when I wanna. I just made that up. It's not called that. But it's basically an update. So I connect this here because I only want this update to start running after this happens. So we'll just say the duration is 99999 because we don't care when it stops. And then we'll just do a do once here so that it only happens once. Just as a quick patch. And then we'll know that this timer isn't going to be started more than once. So now we can use this tick instead of an update. I love doing that. So then so we basically released it so the spring will be able to launch it, and then if the sphere is above the cube, then we'll just say that. So we'll do get position and get position. So when the sphere travels above the cube, then we no longer want the spring to be attached anymore. So let's go there and get spring joint. Okay, yeah. And then set visibility. Or no, set enabled. Yeah, set enabled. Okay. So then we plug in this spring joint into here and we say we want it to turn off if the sphere is above the cube. So then we need some splits. So we can get just the Y position, and that's the height that we're checking, because we don't want to just check the whole vec3. And we'll just do this every frame. Okay. And we'll just do a greater than. So if the position of the sphere Y is greater than the other sphere, then it's time to turn off the spring. And when we turn off the spring, because we don't want our update timer to be running still, we can turn it off. And then we won't have that extra update running constantly. So let's check it out. So we grab it, we let go, and it snaps back. We forgot to turn on the static. Okay. So set is static rigid body. I think, did we want this to turn on? Yeah. No. We wanted it to turn off. Okay, so that should. And the sphere should be. Is it snapping to the cube right now? Or is it because I turned the spring joint off and so it went back to kind of being static? Well, let's see what happens if I don't do this. Okay, so this spring, I guess, is just pulling it very much into here. Is that what's going on? Huh, okay. Let's add a little tolerance. Huh, it looks like, yeah, it's still just snapping into the cube. Oh, breaking. We could set the breaking force to something very small so it breaks free instead of turning off the spring. Seems like turning off the spring maybe is not doing what we thought it was doing. So let's just set breaking force to something very small so that it definitely breaks away. And then source spring joint. I'll just connect this here to make sure it's using the correct spring joint. And let's see if that does what we want. It bounces around a little bit, but it's close. Oops. Oh no. It started recording. I'll turn that off. So it almost does it. It seems like that one moment it just kind of catches on it right as it's breaking out of the joint. So yeah, this was the version. Is there any way to make that work? I'm not sure. Turning off the spring and letting it break out of the spring seem like the two things I would try. Yeah, if we do hit a point where, like this, where using the spring joint to spring the ball forward doesn't work, then I would just use a node. So let's see, in the physics nodes, there are all these different nodes that are very useful, like apply impulse. We can try that so that when you let go, it figures out the angle that you pulled back from and adds up an impulse force to launch the ball. But that would be a little less springy. And that solution would also take a little time. Celine, how are we on time?
We're doing okay. I think we have 15 minutes-ish left if you still want to work on it.
You might be muted.
Oops, sorry. I think it went into the stream, but not to you. We're doing great on time. I think we have 15 more minutes-ish if you want to continue working on it. But do you think it is the length of the plane or square box that's maybe causing the catching? Do you think it would be better if it's narrow?
So the square box doesn't have any sort of colliders, and the shape of the mesh doesn't have any impact on the rigid body or anything like that. So I don't think it really matters that we scaled it. We can try scaling it, but that would maybe be pretty weird. Yeah. So the visualization that we see won't really impact it, but
according I think it was a couple months ago, we had a Korean ambassador, Yoonjung, come and explain how he created his very viral Minecraft heart shooting arrow. And at that time, he told us that he manually kind of faked physics by just animating the arch of the arrow. Yeah, but I am not sure in this situation. Do you want to troubleshoot and get back to this?
I mean, I could show you how to do the way I would do it if I were making an effect.
Yes, we love all of August's mega hacks. I really love the hack that you shared with the update as well.
Oh yeah, that's great. I love doing that. Okay, do we have enough time? It might take 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, I think we have time.
All right, cool. So here is the way to do it with the spring, where we haven't quite found a way to stop it from catching on the spring as it breaks free. So if anybody wants to, I'm just showing the whole thing in case you want to copy this and try messing with it on your own. There might be a way to keep it going after it catches on the spring, but I think you would have to do some hacks. On the other side, we could create our own kind of launching subgraph up here. And so I think that will work a lot better because we're not, we know exactly how all of the stuff works because it's much more simple rather than trying to make a whole feature do something that it wasn't kind of created for. Let's see, I'm going to delete this stuff actually, because I don't want it to influence any of this other stuff. Okay, so the rigid body that we care about. Actually, no. I don't want to delete everything, right? We want to keep that dragging stuff. That was pretty nice. Okay, so set rigid body to not be static. So this enables it to be fully functional. So we'll start there. So it is now a physics object when you let go. And we'll just, for this, we're just going to launch it up. We can launch it up Y and forward. So yeah, so our force, let's just say 10 up, 10 forward. Oh, did that go through? Okay. So apply impulse here. Is local impulse? Probably not, since it's since we're doing it on a sphere. We want to be careful. We no longer need this spring joint because we're not going to use that anymore. So I want to remove that so it doesn't affect it. And then the rigid body. So I'll get rigid body here. For the physics stuff, I like to manually get and then set in here. Yeah. Okay, so then now, actually, who knows? Maybe this will just work. Okay, so I think there might not be enough of an impulse. Oh, okay, so the position is 0, 0, 0. So is local impulse. I guess the thing that I'm not sure about is if the sphere rotates, would the impulse rotate with it? Is that going to be local in that sense? I think it's more talking about the local position. So we want it to happen at the center of the circle. So that would be here. So then we can try again. It doesn't, it seems like it might be getting a tiny impulse. I'll just pump these numbers up. Okay, yeah, it was getting a tiny impulse. Sometimes the numbers you just have to make larger. And notice it came towards the screen. For our slingshot, we want it to go away from the screen. So we'll say -100, and I'll just drag this down. And there we go. Now it shoots forward. This would be maybe great for AR. Obviously, gravity is working against you in this case. So if you want, you can just make your Y number even higher. That's one strategy. You can also go up to the effect settings in Effect House and click on physics, and you can adjust gravity. So if you're trying to find the sweet spot of how something, like making something look perfect, always consider gravity. I think very few people notice that I set the gravity to 5 in the flag template to make the flag float a little more nicely. So that's a great example of using the physics to make something look how you want it to look, rather than realistic physics simulation. So yeah, this is going to work great. Probably 1000 is too much, but this is where I would just trial and error. And if you want it to work like a slingshot, where the further you pull it back, the more power it has, there's two things you could do. You could use a remap node and do a simple cartoony version of that, or you could Google search physics equations for springs, which I think is what I did in the past for my projects with a bow and arrow. So it'll probably look pretty similar. I don't think you get too much extra by doing a very realistic physics simulation. So let's take a look. We want this Y to be represented by one of these remaps, and the Z can probably just actually be -100 or whatever static value. So we're going to need a combine node. And we'll just say -100 is
always Z. We can do extra logic if we want to change that in the future. And then what's the minimum? I guess 0 is the minimum. Well, let's say some minimum like 80. Oops. 80 is if you just touch it and you don't drag it down at all. And then we'll say 500 is the maximum power you can give it. And then X will just give nothing for now. I think you should add X into the mix if you're making a real effect. But and then this input, once again, maybe we shouldn't have deleted all of that stuff because we're just going to compare the Y of the cube and sphere. And that's fine. That's fine. So, oops. So we'll split these so we can get the Y again, even though we kind of already did this. And then we'll subtract. So Y here and here. And then this will be our input for our remap. So what is the farthest? When it's at the bottom of the screen, I can see it's going to be -22. And since it's negative, I think I want to swap these. And I'm going to clamp this value in case somebody finds out how to make it more than 22. So yeah, 0 and 22. So you can't, if you drag it up, it's not going to, it'll do the bit that. Okay, so that's because it's 80. So maybe you do actually want to, here's what we would probably want to do. We'll do a lerp vec3, and we'll say the greatest power that it can have is -100 on the Z and 500 here on the Y, and then 0 on the Y and 0 on the Z. It'll just drop. We'll just say that. And then into our lerp, we'll put our remap, and then this will be our force. So now the force will change together. So it'll shoot outward and have more upward power the more you pull it down. So then we just want this value to go from 0 to 1 now, because we're just creating a value to control our lerp. So now our remap is saying, okay, from 0 to 22, distance on the screen that you're pulling that ball down, set it from 0 to 1. Convert that to 0 to 1. And when we let go, the further we pull down, the more power it will have. That works pretty well, and it actually was a little simpler than I thought. As we can see, the Y is maybe still a little too much. But yeah, this is where you would start doing trial and error. Maybe you would start working on your assets so that instead of a cube, you have like a Y-shaped slingshot thing. Maybe you start working on the logic to reset the sphere so that you can shoot more than one. And
this is so good, August.
Then,
you can even,
yeah, we basically
because
have
I
a little
think
Angry Bird slingshot here now. One thing, okay, this is the most important thing I have learned from game development, but feedback is important. In TikTok, we don't have like a controller in their hand that we can vibrate like video game. We have a phone. So you have visual input and then you have audible input. Since a lot of users will replace the audio with a song or something, I usually like to try something on the screen. So you can do little things like take a look at most games where you're like pulling something and stretching back. Pretty much all game developers follow the VR crossbow now, or a bow now, where it like makes a tick every time you stretch back. So it's like tick, 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 tick. And then, sorry, I just saw you change me on screen. But yeah, so it'll like tick like that. That feels so good. So if you can find a way to visually do that, and I would say just like change the scale of the object to just like bump up really quick every time there's a tick, that'll look really great. And that's a whole nother subgraph. But for these kind of things, I just wanted to give you that tip because I think that will make it the difference between people playing it and not playing it. It's like those little nice touches. I hope everyone loves your game. If this helps you make it, I'll just do a drive-by of all of the nodes in case anybody wants to sort of screenshot it.
People were asking if you could maybe save and share the project file.
Yeah, I think I could do that.
Perfect. Okay, so guys, as usual, it would be on our Discord channel. Thank you, August, for live brainstorming, troubleshooting everything on the spot. This is the end of office hours today. I know that we had a couple of questions that we did not get to, but thank you so much, guys, for attending. We'll make sure to get those next time. So come back for next week. And don't forget to submit your Valentine effect so we can review it together on the stream. Bye, guys. Thank you for coming.
See you. Thanks for watching.